Well, welcome to this week's edition of the Cattle Call. I'm Susan Littlefield, and midweek when we're doing this show on an upswing, kind of nice to see and be able to talk about some positives that are happening within this cattle market. Of course, we'll get all the details with Brad Kooima. Brad is with Kooima and Barlow out of Sioux Center, Iowa. And as we look at these markets, first of all, cash cattle to go higher, is that the possibility? Are we in the uphill swing on this market?
Well, I guess I certainly believe we are, Susan. We've I think, and I think last week we talked a little bit about just the reality of the prices that we're at. I think at least I sense that from my customers, you get into this has been a funk that have lasted for 13 or 14 months, right? It started last August already with the Holcomb fire, now the whole COVID situation. And it's almost like we're sitting here complacently going like, well, I got 105, like that's a big deal. My closeouts this week are still losing over $40 a head, and that's the best it's been since February. So I did a little work a couple of weeks ago at looking at a 10-year history of cash cattle. We've been below 100 basically 3 times, and those 3 times are always very briefly. One was in 2016 when we got those cattle backed up to a fairly well, when we had the big break at the last half of 15 and into 16. The other time was the Holcomb fire. The third time was this COVID-19 thing. Okay, so a cash market below 100 is not the normal. It's the rare time. So I guess so I told myself, I said, well, let's not get bearish at $1, for goodness sakes. And now we're seeing I believe the supply finally get leveled out, Susan. We're finally got show lists in Texas and Kansas that are similar to what they were a year ago. I'm finally getting feed yards down there that say, you know what? We're finally caught up. We're finally current. We got cattle for sale, of course, but we don't have this, wish we could have sold 3 weeks ago because we couldn't get them dead because of the COVID thing. So I feel like we're in a much, much better spot from a supply management standpoint. So then you go, okay, so that's supply. What about demand? You got a packer that still has huge margins. And, the box beef value, we can talk about that in a minute here, but, with the producer a little more current, with the futures a little bit of a premium, I think if he just kind of bows his neck and, grows a spine, right, that I think we can get a little more for cattle this week. And I really think the trend of that cash cattle moving forward is higher.
Well, you talk about box beef. Is it going to continue to move lower now?
I think, have been talking, and you and I'm as guilty as anybody, talking about how the boxes were likely going to break quite a bit after we got to the week of Labor Day. Very seasonal that we would do such a thing. But we have had, we may have to reevaluate how we're looking at the whole box beef trade. We have shifted the paradigm that is retail trade versus hotel restaurant trade. We've lost a lot of that restaurant trade, of course, because of COVID closings, but we have taken the retail trade, the I'm going to grill a steak in my backyard type trade. We've taken that to a level that has never been before. So I think if you'd have asked me this question 2 weeks ago, I'd have said, sounds like the boxes are going to 205 to 210. Now I'm going to tell you that I think this 215 low is going to catch it. I think I think the boxes have stopped going down. So with the box trade that's going to hold or go up a little in value, in my opinion, with numbers that actually, when you get to mid-October and into November, get tighter. I like what I see. Now, if we get some kind of swooping black swan deal, of course, all bets are off. You got an election coming up, yada, yada. But if I had to just do the cattle fundamentals, I like where we are. We just need to get to a better price where these cattle work again.
So having said that, are we going to rally come the 1st of October?
The seasonal would say yes. There is one thing that I'm kind of holding back with the, let's make sure the back door is unlocked. October carried a pretty nice premium to August. There were times when October was anywhere from 10 or 12 above cash, like in July and August. There is a bit of a risk here that you may have had some people carry some cattle forward into this October slot, maybe roll hedges back even from August into October. So I want to see a little bit what like the supply feels like when we get to that first part of October. I'm hoping that I'm pleasantly surprised that we don't feel any big bulge. Obviously, one of the things that we watch here very, very carefully is the average weights. There's another thing that we brought to San Antonio a year ago, wanting next day weights on all the cattle. That passed unanimously. We're still waiting for that exactly to get implemented. But looking at the comprehensive weights, which would represent about 60% of the cattle, and those weights do come out daily. Yesterday, I noticed that they were down 10 pounds. A good friend of mine, Charlie McBain, used to say, one robin doesn't make it spring. So one day doesn't make it, but if we would start to see these weights come down, I would, then I will be wearing my cowboy hat the next time we do this stuff.
Sounds good to me. We did see a little bit of sales this week already to kind of kick off the week. Is that going to set the tone as we move into not only this week, but finish out the month of September?
A little bit of sales, you're right. 105, sounds like most everyone will call in except one for 165. They're not getting a lot of cattle bought yet. I know there's a fair number of asking prices around 107 up here in the north. I'm going to stick to my guns and think if we can hang in there till Friday, we're going to get $1 higher, something more like 106 to 7 in the north, and maybe more like 5 or even maybe 6 in the south. We'll see. I feel like I'm in the minority. I think most people are thinking steady at best on the cash. I'm going to stick to my guns and think that there's enough margin there that if we got the courage to ask for more, I think we can get more.
But the margins are big right now, aren't they, for packers?
They'll tell you I'm wrong, but what, 300 plus, 400? I don't know. 215 box used to be we'd have $1.20 cash cattle when the boxes were at 250. So you don't need to send any sympathy cards out there. I think they're doing just fine.
All right, sounds good. Thanks so much. Brad Kooima has been joining us this week, and that is the Cattle Call. Have a great rest of your week.